everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Search Bar. Really excited for this one. Just as a reminder, this is the podcast for law firm leaders who want smarter growth without the guesswork. And wine is always optional. I'm Eric Ritter, founder of Digital Neighbor, and with over 12 years helping firms scale from the inside out, I'm here to share what actually works: sharper marketing, stronger systems, and strategies built to grow with you. And if you're running a law firm and want more of the right leads, larger retainers, and more cases closed, you're in the right place. And if you're ready to put these ideas into action, check out my Emotion for Marketing system. It's a foolproof system that starts with a free discovery session, no fluff, just a clear path forward, and you'll find the link in the show notes. Now to today's episode. We're talking and tackling a topic that's becoming impossible for law firms to ignore: AI and intellectual property. From drafting documents to creating marketing content, AI is transforming how we work, but it's also raising big questions about copyright, confidentiality, and risk. So I'm really excited for today's guest, who is a subject matter expert on all these, Randi Karpinia, CEO of Sagacity Legal. With a distinguished background in engineering, technology, AI, and intellectual property law, Randi has helped clients protect their innovations while navigating complex legal terrain. Her blend of expertise and resilience makes her an invaluable guide for law firms looking to safeguard their work and their clients in this new area. Randi, welcome to the Search Bar. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is my favorite conversation to have.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to get into it. Before we do, I always like to give and talk a little bit about a wine recommendation. We were able to connect before the podcast, and you actually shared, and this is a novum, a first time on the podcast. We are recommending a rice wine from Japan, a sake, my understanding, and we have the Junmei Nigori Snow. And it seems like it's a great choice if you want something that is creamy, approachable, with a touch of sweetness. My understanding is you usually want to serve sake chilled before pouring it, and around white wine temperature. But I'm not the expert. Randi, how do you like to kind of serve your sake?
Yes, and, over ice, cold, my favorite. Great for friends. Getting to know people.
Love it. So I've personally only had sake like at a Japanese restaurant. So I know it pairs really well with sushi, sashimi, kind of those richer fishes, probably like the salmon, the tuna. But I'm sure it could also go with like a dessert, like a cheesecake or a brie or something like that. So that's the recommendation for today. So just like this is a very unique, interesting new topic, we're recommending an interesting new wine today as well. So I want to get into the AI revolution in law, Randi. You are an expert on this, so I'm really curious kind of on your thoughts. So my expertise is more on the implementation side, right? Using AI for marketing, using it for automations, using it to ask questions, ChatGPT always being the yes and the cheerleader for me, right? No matter what I ask, it's always, hey, that's a great idea, Eric, no matter what it is, right? But AI has really moved from theory to that daily reality in the legal world. From your perspective, Randi, what's changed the most in the past few years if we focus in on AI?
Yeah, and again, talking from a law firm basis, it's really interesting because AI adoption in 2023, according to the ABA, was about 11% in law firms, and in 2024, it was 30%. Wow. Really waiting to see what the 25 numbers are, because these conversations weren't taking place even as, last year at this time. Right. Yeah.
That's really interesting, So 2023, I guess that's kind of when, ChatGPT first came out and kind of blew that door open for AI. So what do you think are like some opportunities for law firms and maybe even some risk when it comes to AI, Randi?
Yeah. So lawyers are problem solvers, right? And AI is being proven to be a really good tool for problem solving. Yeah. It automates tasks, especially tasks that are large amount of text, It can automate or review it quickly and then mimic certain kinds of legal work. So examples would be summarizing documents, drafting emails or memos in plain English, spot irregularities in contracts, retrieving relevant case law. So there is a lot of opportunities, but at the same time, we need to be awfully careful. And where I spend a lot of time is understanding the risks and using the opportunities, because every law firm needs to get on the AI boat. Let's just face it. But we have to do it thoughtfully and understanding the risks that are involved and just minimizing those.
Yeah. So you mentioned some stats there. I think it was 11%, 30-ish% there. And I wouldn't be surprised if it doubled or tripled, right, in 2025. But I think there's still, a lot of hesitancy to adopt AI in law firms. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, so I'm big on statistics. So just like we said, where ABA says 30% of law firms were using it. So another 2024 survey in brokers, a different survey said 78% are not, right? So it's somewhere in there, right? The majority of law firms are still not using. And when they were asked in that survey, the things that the law firm said, I totally agree with, are accuracy of information. And I'll just kind of tell you them, then we can talk about them.
Yeah.
Data privacy concerns, bias. AI is being trained by people and by inputs. And so social bias is a big concern. Security vulnerabilities are huge. Cyber criminals have been targeting law firms for a number of years. It's been all over the news. Yeah. Guess what? Now they jumped on the AI train. So now we have new cyber issues related to using AI.
Yeah, so data privacy and security and getting hacked and everything sounds pretty scary, but yet you say, we need to adopt AI. So you feel like the potential upside, the benefits outweigh any of those potential negatives that we're currently seeing?
I don't know if those are the words I would use. I would say that there's a predictable future where using AI thoughtfully can really, make the law firm life that much more efficient. But I'm still of the, baby steps and watching the risks still.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense, right? You don't want to do something and it turns out, hey, now all of a sudden, you have breached some kind of confidentiality agreement by putting into some open AI model, and then you're training that model and someone else gets to answer. Which I spoke at an AI conference last month, Randi, and that was one of the items that came up was businesses, like enterprise businesses, are afraid of their employees using AI models, because if you're using a free model, then that model is, say, ChatGPT, if you're using the free version, it will then use your input to train it, and then it has that in its database, right? So let's just say, someone at Coca-Cola is like, hey, this is our secret sauce to Coca-Cola, right? All the ingredients and everything. What do you think? And then, oh, yeah, it looks great. Thank you. And then it has that information. Then later someone asks it and it knows all those secret ingredients. So there is real risk there, of giving information away by the AI model. And I think the biggest concern for me is people aren't aware of that, right? It's just the education side of it, understanding that just because something's free or just because you can use something doesn't mean that you should be using it.
Yeah, and you said something very important. Free versions, open versions. When you're choosing to use AI, how you use it, the inputs you put in, as well as which tool you use, there's a giant differences when it comes to data privacy confidentiality. So as an example, let's talk about law firms specifically, where the world I'm in. We have an extra duty of confidentiality, right? And not only do we have to worry about PII like the whole rest of the world, we have to worry about the confidentiality of the information. So if, a law firm associate takes a client's case and throws it into, an unsecure AI and gets this great brief, like you said, have you now lost attorney-client privilege?
Mm-hmm.
Have you now made that information aware to the public? Could the opposing side, if it's a litigation, find it? But there are things you can do. And the first is look at the terms of service. You said, if you use it free, it's automatically used to train the AI models. Well, most AI models have an option to turn off training, not all. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking at and we have choices, right? When you're looking at which system to use, make sure you have that option to turn it off. Using a private AI system versus a public. People that know me joke about, I'll just say it, like ChatGPT is like a cuss word for me. I use other AI models, but I just won't use it. And it does in the paid model, actually, you can turn off training. But, going back to my least favorite of the AI models, it took 300 billion words to train ChatGPT the first time, and it's continuing to be trained. That's a whole lot of data, a whole lot of words. Yeah. Don't tell me that there's not confidential information in there. There is. Yeah. So how you use AI and the data you're putting in makes all the difference, and being thoughtful about, using it, as a starting point, just using it for something where there is no client data, where there is no confidential data, and just being very careful about what you're using it for, just from that's just one of the risks is, of course, as we said, the confidentiality.
Yeah. And I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Like just understand, like you said, the terms of service, what's actually going on with that AI. There's different models out there. And I think it's interesting because usually I always hear ChatGPT's number one. So it's interesting to hear that for you, it's a cuss word in your house or a bad word. Yeah. So that's really interesting. So we're talking about like being tricky. There and kind of, the confidentiality. I want to talk a little bit more about intellectual property. You started to talk about it a little bit. If you're using 300 billion words to train it, presumably ChatGPT, the AI model, went out there and potentially used content that includes intellectual property that maybe shouldn't, because that's where things get really tricky. And before I hand it off to you, I don't know where it is, but I remember probably like a year ago or so, I think it was Sarah Silverman, the comedian, sued ChatGPT because it was using her copyrighted material to train the model. And that's just one example of, I'm sure, a lot of other people whose copyrighted materials is being fed to these machines. And that's why you're hearing deals of like Reddit getting so much money from this model to train the model and everything. And so just curious, the key question, Randi, is who owns AI-generated content, that comes out the other side? Is it the user, the developer, or no one? Where are we?
Right, and that's a great question. And the first, of course, it depends, right? Who owns it by definition today in the U.S. versus UK versus China? Every country is grappling with this, and they're not the same. Right. So let's talk about the U.S. because you and I are here in the U.S. But just know that what we talk about doesn't necessarily hold in other countries because the case law is so very brand new. And maybe that's a good place to start. And then I'll answer the question. The first fair use case in the U.S. for copyright infringement of an AI model was in February of this year. And that's a lower court decision, right? In that particular decision, it was not fair use, but it was so blatant because the company that was being sued was using their competitors' data to create a lower cost model. So it was like obviously not fair use. But even that case and all the ones being decided this year, they're only at the lower court, right? The Supreme Court hasn't heard anything yet. So when you're using AI and saying, do I own this? Am I infringing? Who owns it? As you asked, it's going to be a long time before we know. But what we know today about AI generated content, which is, I think, what you're wondering, if I use AI and I create this great blog post and I want to copyright that blog post, or I create, some image, who owns it? That law is actually older. In fact, I've been following AI ownership of AI inventions for probably about 5 years now. There are court cases for that. And the key there is under both U.S. copyright law and actually U.S. patent law. So in patents, it's an inventor, and copyright, it's an author. The originator must be a human being. And as soon as you see that, the courts have been very strict, and they've been tested to say, if AI created it, it's not copyrightable, it's not patentable. And the Copyright Office actually recently put that into their regulations. So at least the Copyright Office has actually said there must be human content for something to be copyrighted. So what does that mean? That means that if there's a work and part of it was done by AI, the part that's protectable is the part that a human being actually did, right? And so in there, I just gave you a tip. How do I copyright something that I wrote? Make sure that a good portion of it you actually really wrote. Don't presume that something totally generated by AI that can be owned by anyone. So what does that mean? That means if AI generated content cannot be protected by copyright or patent law, the whole world owns it. It's open to the public.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So very, very eye-opening, right? So what I'm hearing is there are some ways to protect AI-created works for your clients potentially, but it can't be 100% AI created. It needs to have a very, very heavy human part in it. And it sounds like we're still very, very early on in this, Randi, right? The lower courts are just now. So, what's your prediction? How long till this gets to the Supreme Court till we get?
I can't. Are we going to take bets on it?
Yeah,
I'm
guessing. Pool going here.
Yeah, I'm guessing before we have clarity, because remember the court cases, they get decided on one issue. Right. And it's very specific to the fact pattern. Like the case I mentioned, that was a fact pattern. They were competitors. The competitor was using the market leader's information. Right. So I think, in my mind, and I could be wrong, it's going to be years. Like if I had to put a number, I'd say by the time all the different fact patterns come out, and then we need regulations. Right. So you get court cases, and then the lawmakers need to do their job too.
Yeah, so we still got a ways to go. So in the meantime, what are some things that law firms, attorneys should know and equip themselves with and be armed with when it comes about copyright and trademark in the AI era? Yeah,
so the first thing is, it's kind of a combination. That if your client comes to you, and I get this a lot as an IP attorney, ask the questions. So for me, when someone brings me a logo and says, can you trademark this for me? I say, where did it come from? How was it created? Oh, I hired someone. How did they create it? Did they take a sketchbook and draw it? Probably not. How was it? Because that will inform what you can protect, right? So for law firms working with their clients, asking the origination, understanding the origination, and then understanding from a law firm usage standpoint, that we might not know where the material the AI is using. And I know I'm all gloom and doom. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's all good. We don't know where we're going, right? It's a brave new, it's a complete evolution or revolution of doing business with AI.
Right.
And now same thing in law firms, trying to figure out, it's almost like, we went from pen to paper to using computers. And now we went from non-AI to AI, trying to figure out how's all this going to settle once the dust is, kind of settles here. How does this all go?
Right. And so, after not only for asking clients and where things originated, the other piece is knowing that if you use something, and we have to go back to my favorite topic, hallucinations, because we missed it.
Yes.
But if you use AI, know that you may be at risk of infringing someone else because you don't know where that original material came from.
Yeah.
So, the last thing any of us want is to be the subject of a law firm, a lawsuit. And remember, those cases haven't been decided, right? Mm-hmm. If AI infringes, are the users infringing? We don't know the answer to that yet, right? So we have to be careful.
Who's liable, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Great question. And hallucinations bring up a whole nother can of worms. I'm sure listeners, viewers out there know by now. AI is susceptible to making up a lot of stuff. We call that hallucinations. And I don't know the exact facts of the case or of the matter, but there was a court case, I think it was in Texas, if I'm not wrong, where someone used AI and they were trying to use it for case law, and it was just made up cases, right? Like AI just came up with these cases, and it's happened to me personally. And this was given a year and a half ago when ChatGPT was starting up. I was using it trying to create a piece of content, Randy, and it's about my subject matter is marketing SEO. So I wrote this nice, beautiful SEO blog post, or it did for me. And then I'm like, this is great. Can you give me the sources? And it gives me a list. And I looked over the list, and all of them looked good. The authors I recognized, right? They were peers of mine in the SEO world. And I'm like, that looks like an interesting one. So I try to find that article and I can't find it. So I asked ChatGPT, I'm like, where are these sources from? It's like, oh, well, you asked for sources. So I generated some. So it made up those sources with real names. So it did a lot of work, right? It looked up who are people who could have been a source here for this article and just made it up there because I asked it to, right? So it saw my request, my prompt of, hey, give me some authors here as a prompt to generate and make up authors there. So it can get really, really interesting with the hallucinations there, because they can look pretty darn real. Like if I had not really checked that, I would have just used them as the sources.
Yeah. So let me explain what a hallucination is. So I like to say AI wants to please you. It's programmed, its DNA, it doesn't have DNA, but its DNA is to provide you an answer. So it does its best, like yours, that's a great example, to provide you. By the way, you mentioned the lawyer who used AI, I think it was ChatGPT. Yeah. I have to tell you, there's probably a case every other week. I cannot figure it out, but these lawyers are still using AI and still getting found out by the judges. So it's don't you learn from somebody else's mistakes?
Yeah.
But I've had multiple of the same situation where clients have come to me and said, oh, I have this invention. And I did the first patent search. And I send it to, one of my team who does the actual search. And she'll come back and go, did they get this from ChatGPT? And then I ask the client, and the client says, oh, yeah. And just like you with your sources, the patent search will be true numbers, made up titles. And it's just trying to give you what you asked for. It's trying to please. So hallucinations, and that's one that it is a big risk that we kind of, when we were talking about confidentiality, we didn't cover, but it is really important to keep in mind. So I heard actually on another podcast, somebody said, and I've just kind of adopted it recently, people first, people last. What you input, we've talked about that. and then checking, like you did, checking what you get from AI is so important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's a tool, right? And for a tool to work, it's about the operator doing the right thing and then checking if the tool did the right thing at the end. So I might adopt that as well, Randy. You human first, human last, because that's the best way to use any tool. I want to talk more about how to protect the law firm. So like you said, doom and gloom, right, is a little bit what we're getting into here. But there's a way to protect yourself for law firm owners, for people that work in law firms, that are listening here. What are some practical steps that they could take themselves to protect their firm, themselves personally, or their clients that are using AI?
Yeah, that's a great question because like you said, we're all going to use it. It's just a matter of time, right? And to me, the first one is doing an AI audit. Understand people are using AI right now. Be very open and ask questions. What is your firm using AI for? And then checking it. So that's like, to me, step one. Policies, lawyers love policies, right? I believe that AI policies aren't a nice to have anymore. They're a must have. We need to define for our teams and ourselves, what is acceptable use of AI tools, outline how they are permitted to be used, establish procedures and documentation. And that's an important one to me. I think people forget. Documenting when AI was used and vice versa, obviously not used, could be really helpful if, a client or someone else comes after you and you say, oh, no, look, we document. We didn't use AI here. This was us, right? If
So
you
smart. Yeah.
So I think that having the procedures and then in the procedures documenting when AI is used or not used or vice versa,
having that audit trail is so important.
It's good. We don't know what's going to happen and we don't want to look bad, right? We want our clients to trust us. So being able to say, this is when we use it, this is when we don't. And by the way, we keep a running list. We know when it's being used. And setting that human ownership piece that having a standard that if you're using AI assisted work, make sure, I don't know if it's a percentage, that there is that human factor, I think is really, really important. And training. AI is like this technology that is just changing so quickly. And people, like you say, are picking up the free tools, or all of a sudden we open our email and there's an AI tool. It's just built in. So, hey, cool. Why don't we use it?
Force down our throats if we want it or not.
Yeah, but we have to know what that means and providing training. And along all of that is security training, cybersecurity and data privacy training, especially now with AI.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, right? Cybersecurity training is very, very important. Anything from make sure you got two-factor authentication, make sure you're checking where the email came from. And so I think part of that needs to be the training for AI as well. So if you're at a law firm, Randy, what specific policies do you think they should have in place? Should it be a standard operating procedure? Should it be internal? Should it maybe be outward facing? Should they be putting on their website, this is how we deal with AI? Just curious, what your thoughts are there.
Yeah. So having an actual AI policy that employees have to sign that actually talk about processes is very important. I think you need that immediately. SOPs, absolutely, to back that up. Vendor management. So whether it's a contractor, a third party, a 1099 employee, or vendors that you use, having clauses in those contracts, even if it means going back and amending contracts, because remember, it's not just what we do internally, it's what our third party suppliers and contractors are doing. Having an SOP for how to vet AI tools, so that people know if I'm looking at an AI tool for answering the phone, what's my checklist? What do I need to be doing? So I think all of those are kind of some things, vetting AI tools, for example, should include, I go back to it, security and compliance.
Mm-hmm.
Some AI tools make a big deal about, they keep your stuff confidential, and others say nothing. Or others say, yeah, we use it to train our model.
Right. No, I think that's so important because any industry, and I think law firms especially, where you have, attorney-client privilege, you got all these compliance concerns and everything. I think having that policy in place to understand when you're looking at a new software solution, maybe you're switching to a new case management software and it has AI in there, having the ground rules that your agency has established when using AI in place before that, it's going to save you a lot of time and make sure that you're on the right track there. So you gave some great advice there, and it could just be kind of getting everyone to sign a document. But do you have maybe one thing that a law firm can implement this week to be safer with AI?
Yeah, and that's starting the AI audit. I think understanding what your home is doing, understanding what's going on with the family, the law firm family, is really important. I think a lot of people don't know. If the employee, we want to put policies in place, but understanding the risks. We've been talking a lot about different cases. There's a recent one. It was OpenAI, of course. But that lawsuit hasn't been decided yet. But the key point about it that really makes me pause and makes me want to know how my team is using AI is the judge in that case has now told OpenAI that they're not allowed to delete any data that's been entered. Yeah, that's really, really scary. So if you audit your team, even it's a matter of sitting each person down and saying, how are you using AI? Write it down, or whatever way makes sense to understand that. Know that you're already behind because you can't just say, oh, let's go in and delete that. At least in the case of OpenAI, it can't be deleted right now.
Wow. That's very eye-opening. So I want to kind of wrap up here, Randi. We talked about what you can implement to be safer with AI, and I'm a little biased here, but I think the number one thing people should do is go through the checklist that we're about to give to people. It's 5 steps to safeguard the firm in the AI era, and I know it's a quick start guide here to protect you with AI when that's in the mix here. So we got 5 points. I'll go through them one by one, and then would love if you add a little bit to it, Randi, as a subject matter expert here.
Sounds good.
So we'll start number 1, identify where AI is being used in your practice. And that's that AI audit you were talking about, right?
Exactly. That's number 1 thing to do today.
Got it. Then number 2 is create a written policy for ethical and secure AI use in your firm.
Absolutely. And have everybody sign it, whether it's an employee, a vendor, or contractor.
Love it. So number 3, train your team on IP risks related to AI generated content. That's right, your wheelhouse as an IP attorney, right?
It is. And of course, follow me on LinkedIn to get all the latest.
Love it. Hope everyone does. You get great content there. Number 4, keep client and firm data out of unsecured AI tools. And that goes back to the beginning of our conversation here.
Absolutely. And I'd add, if you're going to be using a private tool, encrypt the data before you input it.
Nice. Good to know. And number 5, finally, stay updated on evolving AI and IP regulations, because it's always
perfect
changing.
List.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's crazy. Me as a digital marketer, it's already tough enough to keep up. Like every quarter, everything's changed like upside down. And it looks like that's what's happening kind of with AI, IP in the legal space right now as well. Things are moving really fast.
It is.
So make sure, as Randi said, you follow her there on LinkedIn. And Randi, a big thank you from me for joining us here today and showing us how law firms can embrace AI safely while protecting their work and their clients. Before we sign off, you mentioned LinkedIn, Randi. Is that the best place for listeners, for viewers to connect with you and learn more about your work?
Yeah. So for education, go to my YouTube channel, videosbyattorneyrandi.com. There's a ton of AI and IP videos there that, lots of shorts so you can learn from. My website is sagacitylegal.com. LinkedIn, yes, best place to connect with me. And I also have a newsletter, Protect Your Uniqueness newsletter on LinkedIn. I'm, publishing as often as I can about these new cases and what's changing. And then lastly, because we all have lots of ways to connect, if anyone wants to chat more, meetwithrandi.com and schedule on my calendar.
Love it, Randi. A lot of different options for people there. We'll make sure we throw them in the show notes as well, and in the description wherever you're consuming this podcast right now. And I want to make sure that our listeners, if you're ready to grow your firm with smarter strategies and stronger systems, book your free discovery call with me. We'll go through my Motion for Marketing Success system, and you'll find the link in the show notes as well. And just as a reminder, today's wine recommendation, courtesy of Randi, is a nice sake. Nomai Pure Snow Junmei Nigori is the full name for it. We'll put that in the show notes as well. Best served over ice. That's Randi style, as we're going to call it. And hope everyone had a fantastic time. I learned so much on this episode. And if you got value from it as well, please share it with a colleague. Leave a review. It helps more law firms discover strategies that actually work. Until next time, protect your work. Use smart tools wisely and keep building a practice you love. Cheers. Until next time.